Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 3 for this news report today. It's Wednesday, January 23rd, 2013. I'm Darko. I'm going to continue here. We were just talking about climate change, right? Climate alarmist Michael Mann charging $10,000 to speak about how the crisis, all these crises, is the new normal, according to Davos. They want to green the economy using $14 trillion, and it's all about wealth redistribution, which is why you have what? Obama in this article where he said America's possibilities are limitless. He talked about what? Our country cannot succeed when shrinking few do very well and the growing many barely make it. So he's talking about wealth redistribution. Now he's not talking about the people that he serves, the people that help put him there. He's talking about taking it from the middle class and giving it to the poor. We believe that America's prosperity must rest upon the broad shoulders of the rising middle class, and of course, what pays for all the tax breaks and all the subsidies that go to the super rich and the billionaires and the big corporations? Well, the millionaires. That mom and pop place that has like a net operating income of $1 million and helps create jobs in your local community, those are the ones that are going to help fund the rich, and the middle class will fund the poor, and then, so they'll always be squeezed. But in order to do that, they have to do what? They have to use climate change as a reason to redistribute wealth. And I'll show it because I haven't shown it in a while. From November 2010, UN official admits we redistribute world's wealth by climate policy. This has almost nothing to do with environmental policies. A quote from a member on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And that's actually what that article is talking about. That's why I recommend going in there and checking it out. It talks about basically how these different economies really are. That's how the elites, these globalists, have set it up, so that if we don't go along with globalism, then our economies will collapse. So it's kind of a fight between national sovereignty and globalism. But we've gone past the point of no return as far as countries go, and that's why you see countries like Russia, reaching out the olive branch to the U.S. again today in an article. I've been covering that, and that was Zbigniew Brzezinski who said that the Russia is going to eventually have to mend ties and get closer economically or politically with the United States in order to survive economically, because him and all his cronies and all that, they're the ones that set up the system, so he knows how it has to be. Okay, next, Sweden mulls carbon tax on meat to reduce emissions. Sweden's agricultural board on Tuesday proposed a tax on meat to discourage consumption of a product that supposedly strains the environment because much of it has to be imported. So it goes on here, it says the report offered 3 solutions: less meat consumption globally, the possibility of taxing meat, and international agreements to support sustainable meat production. That's synthesized, making meat out of human waste. So real good stuff. And like I said before, was it Prince Charles, whatever, who advocates that the U.S. should stop eating beefs in order to save the planet, has their own Angus organic beef farms. So like the quote communist in China, right? All the party members have their own separate gardens of produce and meats. Irish plant shuts over new horse meat in burgers. Ireland finds more horse meat traces in burgers. Imported ingredient, plant suspends operation. They were the second largest manufacturer of supermarket beef patties in Ireland. U.S. allows chemicals in food that are legal elsewhere. I'm surprised to see this out there in the mainstream media. I wonder if it's to distract from what's going on over there in Ireland. But it says when Gatorade fan learned that her favorite drink contains an emulsifier banned in other countries over health concerns, she was taken aback. I was shocked that they'd put their consumers at risk like that, and that the FDA would allow something to be put in products. Yeah, well, kind of being naive, but hey, she's a Mississippi 15-year-old who launched a petition in November asking Gatorade to remove the ingredient called brominated vegetable oil. It's illegal in the EU, Nepal, Canada, Brazil, Japan. Other ingredients that are allowed in American food but not in other countries include certain artificial colors and additives that improve flour. So I know why this is coming out. This first video article, group finds more fake ingredients in popular foods. So there was that article, and then there's from the 21st. I was going to cover this in another video in the next one, but I'll do it now. Russia to ban German chilled meat imports in February. Remember, Russia has actually been importing Australian beef as well, trying to get rid of having to import it. They want to just start raising their own. They're actually hiring ranchers from the United States to do it. So it says Moscow-Berlin ties have been frosty. Russia requires testing for ractopamine, for meat from the U.S. It says Russia will stop importing chilled meats from Germany. Remember, that's Aldi. That's the one that was tied up with the Irish scare as well because of health concerns. The thing is that we cannot accept guarantees from Germany's veterinary service. We have lots of questions to ask them. So it says our existing veterinary service is not perfect. And it goes in there and include the ban comes against a background of frosty relations between Moscow and Berlin. But maybe they just want to have healthier food for their people or for themselves, for the elites. Who knows, right? American milk banned in Europe because it does no body good. So, but it goes on here and it says that as a mother and as a parent, you always hear the campaigns of milk marketers. Milk, it does the body good, and got milk. I've been led to believe that milk is needed, especially by young children, for bone growth, brain development. I asked the question, why is U.S. produced milk banned in Europe? It turns out in '94, the U.S., most of you already know this, FDA approved the use of a recombinant bovine growth hormone, RBGH, in its milk, and is believed to increase the risk of cancer. Public Health Committee confirmed early reports of excessive levels of this IGF-1, including high-potent variants in milk, pose major risk of cancer, particularly breast and prostate, besides promoting the growth and invasiveness of cancer cells by inhibiting their programmed self-destruction. So, you know, I'm not sure, I'm not going to tell you because I'm not a doctor, but how much nutritional value milk may have. But the milk that's served, that has the growth hormones, antibiotics, that is pasteurized and homogenized in the United States, it probably will do you more harm than good. I mean, it's like weaponized food, because milk is kind of semi-considered a food, even though it's liquid. And it's pretty bad. It could do some real damage in there. So I'd recommend not drinking it. And if you are, try to get unpasteurized, unhomogenized, without growth hormone milk, raw milk basically. And remember I mentioned about dairy farming industry. They're literally an extension of the government. They're a big complex that nobody talks about. Dairy farmers to get $158 million in price-fixing settlement. The Dairy Farmers of America Cooperative and several related entities. I love that, several related entities. Have agreed to pay $158 million to settle allegations that they conspired to fix the price of milk in the Southeast. So not a very big surprise like the beef industry, right? And just think, if you didn't have this huge dairy industry conglomerate or cooperative along with the big, huge beef industry, you'd probably have more localized, healthier food. And when there was health scares, it wouldn't really concern most people because they bought their food locally. Subway hit with class action lawsuit after a photo of too short sub went viral. Again, I couldn't believe this when I heard about stories about people getting all up in arms about this. I'm like, dude, there's so many more problems. There's so many more problems to be up in arms about. I mean, there was actually people petitioning and protesting. It's like, Jesus Christ, man, why don't you go after people, put groups together to go after like the Federal Reserve System or fraudulent bankers or just whatever, a Monsanto, the people that give children narcolepsy, you know, these pharmaceutical companies that damage and kill people and maim them, right? Experiment on them. No, they go after Subway, of all things. And it's like, granted, Subway probably isn't, who knows whether it's GMO or not, but I mean, for a foot long, it's not a bad price, $5, and you can get filled up, you know what I mean? But I don't know, to me, it just seems like people will bitch about anything because they feel like, ooh, well, I have no power over the economy, I have no power over politics, and I'm a victim, right? I have a victim mentality, so I'm just going to go ahead and lash out on other victims. Again, that same scenario here. Literally bite the hand that feeds them. So then you have this. iRobot, would you like fries with your burger? So it's bad enough that there's hardly any jobs, but retail jobs and working at McDonald's and as a janitor with a PhD. Says California's Silicon Valley is in the throes of giving birth to its next world-changing technology robots. Remember, we just covered this about how there's actually the first like robot that's going to be born It's like in 9 months or something like that. First Android, I just covered it like within the last month. Startup companies are scrambling to develop humanoid-style robots to cater for a growing demand for both business and consumers. So, some companies developed a robot designed to take the place of humans in burger restaurants, designed entirely replace 2 to 3 full-time kitchen staff. It can grill a beef patty, layer it with lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, and onions, put it in a bun, and wrap it to go at no less than 360 times at an hour. So it believes kitchen robots are not only more cost-effective than humans, they also are more hygienic, which is a good reason. I mean, you got to admit, there's nothing more frustrating than going to the drive-thru or just going whatever and not getting what you ordered, right? The difference is I'm not sure if robots are going to actually be able to replace humans, because humans have become so much like robots, so efficient, that's why I think that they still use them. You're still going to have people that are so desperate to be able to make ends meet that they're just going to kill themselves working at these small retail chains making a minimum wage, and that moving fast, where I've seen these things move and they don't move that fast. So I still think it's going to be a little bit time, because again, humans are just they're kind of like robots. They have AI, they have intelligence. I mean, and they work fast. So until that happens, until robots can start moving faster than humans, I think their job isn't at threat yet. Meanwhile, the man who's never off the television says curb population or nature will do it for us. Wildlife legend Sir David warns that mankind is a plague on the earth, a plague on the earth. He warned that the world must limit population growth. He made comments in a frank interview with Radio Times. So, because he's really speaking to the other elites, you need to step up the eugenics, you need to step it up, the economic warfare, you need to step it all up. The vaccinations, pushing the climate change, thus eco-fascism. Television presenter is a patron of the Population Matters charity. So he described mankind as a plague on the earth and issued a stark warning that the world must limit its population growth. This is an 86-year-old. He basically, presenter bleakly predicted that if humans do not curb the burgeoning populations, that nature will do it for us. In other words, they will. Kind of like this, Prince Philip in 1984, humanity reaching plague proportions. Remember this report from the 22nd, David Attenborough's plague comment, preceded by another one, Prince Philip. Plague comments by the famous BBC presenter literally echo statements made by His Royal Highness Prince Philip, who in 1984 bluntly pointed out that humanity is reaching plague proportions. You can go in there and watch that. I made a whole video about basically about genetically modified humans. Genetically modified humans to save the planet. That's pretty spooky stuff. Born shorter and stuff like that. And it says here, Oxford professor says genetically altering unborn babies' personality is a moral obligation. Genetically screening our offspring to make them better people is just responsible parenting, claims an eminent Oxford academic. And they're actually talking about not just for people with physical abnormalities or deficiencies, but moral deficiencies. That was in Scotland where they were calling for that. People who come from a bad criminal background should not be able to procreate. Professor and the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Medical Ethics said that creating so-called designer babies could be considered a moral obligation as it makes them grow up into ethically better children. This is based on a few genetic links to personality disorders. Again, psychiatry designed by the elites for them to control us. He said that we should actively give parents the choice to screen out personality flaws in their children, as it is meant that they were less likely to harm themselves and others. Sorry, would-be Neanderthal mom's story a big mix-up. George Church says the whole thing is a misunderstanding. He says we have no projects, no plans, no papers, no grants for a Neanderthal baby project. They were looking for a surrogate mother, basically. He says bringing back the Neanderthals is theoretically possible in the book, but he goes on and he says that they have ethical issues down here, societal and safety questions would need to be addressed. It's my own theory. I haven't really heard too much of this, but I honestly think that Neanderthals were wiped out by another species. They were part of a genetic experiment, and the experiment that came after them, which are known as Homo sapiens in it, basically they took them out. So they needed to go. But I think it would be cruel. I think it would be really cruel if they brought them back, kind of like the woolly mammoths, which we're also talking about bringing back, because this isn't the same environment, the same climate. And I think it would just be really messed up because they'd be used to being free and now they wouldn't be.